Anyway, you want to talk about PSO2? Talk about PSO2.
All right, here we go. Hey, do you remember Games for Windows Live?
I do. In fact, I had to do compliance testing.
Was that a piece of shit?
It was the worst platform we ever had to test for.
Well, I have good news for you. It's no longer the worst Windows games platform. As the Windows Store, or the Windows App Store, is the worst now. Even worse. So back in the day, Games for Windows Live, what's it do? Oh, it doesn't update properly. Downloads the wrong drivers. Game won't boot. PSO2 is not only a game from 2012 and has its own little foibles, right? But the Windows Store just adds a dump truck of feces all over it. I have heard of almost every single type of problem you could run into installing a game on PC. I personally couldn't get the game to run over what I think is 240p because the game refuses to allow me to turn off resolution scaling because the Windows app folder it creates is protected and you can't even delete it.
Sounds like you managed to get it booted.
I did boot it. I spoke to a friend of mine, Cool Lightning. As soon as it finished downloading, he went to load it, and it blue screened his computer. Something he had never seen happen. Ever. I
mean, that's a pretty impressive feat in and of itself, but also getting it to boot is an impressive feat, because from the news, it sounds like Phantasy Star Online 2, after 8 years, finally is available in North America, but it is exclusively on the Microsoft Store, and people are having all kinds of bullshit problems installing it. Namely, that it takes 2 steps to install. First, you download an 11 gig partial launcher from the Microsoft Store, and then you continue getting the rest of the 80 gig game from the client. And apparently, these 2 things do not play nicely.
They sure don't.
So everything breaks.
I had the resolution problem. My buddy had a blue screen. I talked to a guy named President Miyazaki in my sub-Discord. The game would attempt to re-download itself every time he turned it on. And because the way the Windows Store works, and it must protect the integrity of the files, it doesn't duplicate or overwrite it. It just installs it again on a slightly different location. And when you go to uninstall it, it only uninstalls the launcher, and you have to do registry edits and all sorts of shit to get that shit off your fucking that fucking goddamn crap. It is everything that I have heard that could ever go wrong with an install has gone wrong with this install. So I am talking to people. I have 2 friends who are playing it and think it's cool. Everybody else I know installed it, spent a couple hours fighting it, and gave up. Yeah.
Like it's straight up, like, I'm seeing reports here that, like, it's like, oh, some people re-downloaded it multiple times, and each new instance of its fucking 90 gig installation was a new error that did not occur on the last installation.
Yeah.
And there's like a screenshot of like 6 different error messages that just are just completely different from each other. I just saw Mouth say he was trying to install. It took him 24 hours.
So the PSO2 tweaker gang, the people who did the translation stuff, they have, as of today, made the tweaker so that it will download the North American version outside of the Windows Store, and it works. And the reason for this is because if you download the Japanese version, all you really have to do is edit an INI file before it updates and change JP to NA, and you'll just get the fucking North American version of the app.
It's just that simple.
The app itself is not region locked. Just your acquiral of it through the Windows Store is. But it's this thing where I was talking to people on the PSO2 translation team over the weekend. And I was like, they were like, dude, we got this. We're going to fix it. It'll be playable. And I'm like, I waited years for an official release because I didn't want to play this game through bootleg channels. Because when you play an MMO or a card game or whatever through bootleg channels, there's always the possibility that they update it and they kill whatever solution you've been using to play it. And then that game is just gone, right? And I waited, and I waited, and I waited, and I waited for the official release. And the official release came out and was the most negative experience I could have imagined. And the solution to it, while incredible, was just use the new bootleg.
Yeah.
Right? And also, on a blunt use, PSO is like a Warframe MMO. It's like a persistent game. And I feel very anxious playing a persistent server-based game that would be released in such a fucked up state. One of the craziest things about it was that there are 6 servers and only 3 were available, and the game became instantly maxed out on players because I think they tried to use the Xbox player base as a measure of interest. I was talking to a buddy of mine who did manage to get through and play, and him and his buddies couldn't get onto the same ship. But they went, oh, what if we go to the personal housing, and then we can all be in my personal housing thing, and then we can leave the personal housing thing together, right? Except what happened was they went to the personal housing instance, and then the servers all filled up behind them, and their characters became trapped.
Oh my god. Oh fuck.
Like,
okay.
Even though the PSO translation team and tweaking team has done an incredible job fixing this, dude, Sega handles this game like garbage for our region.
And my understanding is that like this was fine for Japan for the last 8 years?
More or less.
Yeah, okay.
But they just half-assed it to us because they only used the money that Microsoft paid them to barely shit it out over here.
Oh, dear God. Like, so, like, I mean, what the fuck? Like, I get,
So it's been a long-standing thing.
Does a GM, like, just grab you and pull you out? Like, what?
No, because there's nowhere to put you.
Oh, my
They
God.
still haven't put those servers on, by the way. There are 3 servers just sitting there. You can see them on the server select that are just off. And no one can figure out why they won't turn them on. Sega does not care about the North American, European, or Australian audiences for this game. And as such, it becomes incredibly difficult to invest any amount of time in it because you have no idea how fucked up playing the game is going to be over time. There was a long-standing thing with a lot of Korean MMOs for a long time, and it hurt their success out here because they would be a patch behind in English.
Ooh, okay.
And that's like a couple months. So people who got really, really, really invested into the game would stop playing the English servers. They go play the Korean ones.
Yeah, that happened.
Didn't speak Korean.
That happened on both Guns, the Duel, and it happened on Ragnarok Online.
And then the company looks at the fucking American servers and they go, well, people are leaving it. The game's not popular there. Mm-hmm, and then support, it's like. So yeah, I have absolutely been killed of any desire to play PSO2. And that is not an uncommon sentiment from the people that I spoke to. The average person that I knew in my group of people that I know was like, yeah, I'll try out PSO2. That game seems cool. It wasn't like a fervent, like, oh my god, PSO2 is coming out, right? And it's turned into like, yeah, I don't care anymore. I just don't want to deal with this. Just fuck it. I'll play something else.
But yet they bothered nearly a decade later. You know?
It's this is like a high watermark for fucked up PC releases. I would say that the worst PC release of note, the worst game release of note before this would be the original Final Fantasy XIV.
Are you putting an MMO qualifier on that statement?
No.
Because we've covered some really
Yeah.
bad PC ports.
Oh, yeah. This isn't even about PC ports. Well, it kind of is, because the fucking Xbox version is fine. The Xbox version even has better text support. You know the game doesn't support higher than 1080p?
Does not support higher than 1080p?
Yeah, you can put the resolution higher, but the text will only scale up to 1080p.
Okay.
So if you fucking run it at 4K, it's unplayable. It's the smallest text you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah.
What a piece of shit.
How much does it cost?
Can I take a moment to point out one last thing?
Yeah, how much does it cost?
Free.
Okay.
When people are talking about a fucked up PC port, if you're gonna come in to a thread or a Twitter thread or a forum thread or a chat and go, works fine for me, I need you to untype that and shove it up your ass. As that is a useless sentence.
What are you talking about? Works fine for it's great. I see no problem.
Okay, Wooly, you've run into a lot of tech stuff. I want to ask you personally, which is worse? Which is worse? Okay. Tech support thread, right? And you're like, hey, I can't get my printer to whatever, right? Doesn't really matter. And a guy goes, works fine for me. Awful, right? Just not helpful. So is that worse than the guy who goes, hey, I don't know how to fix this thing, and it's your exact problem? And then they go, never mind, fixed it.
And you're like, what did you do?
And the thread is 6 years old.
Yeah. And there's like 4 people going, what the fuck, dude? What did you do? Yeah. That one's worse. That one's worse because they came back. They came back to say works fine for me.
Yeah. Now, it'll work fine for me, but not for you. Bye.
You know, they left and then they returned to do the exact same thing.